Hey, what's up, y'all? This is Phil with How to FF6 from Reddit. Today, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about how enclosure scams relate to Gamergate. This is interesting. I just have been doing some learning. I perused the sidebar of the Kotaku in Action subreddit, and I found a 60-second video explanation about what Gamergate was. To be honest, I really wasn't paying too much attention to what was going on here. I didn't really hear too much about it. Most of the games I play are pretty underground, so mainstream things or things that you normally hear about in the mainstream at least weren't really making it through. So I watched the video, the 60-second video, and it seems to me that Gamergate originated as I guess there was some kind of love affair between a developer and a journalist, and it culminated in this glowing review about the game by the journalist, and it just kind of sparked some debate, innocent debate about ethics in journalism, and everything just went kind of crazy, right? And so, it's just kind of interesting. I really think that when it comes to these enclosure scams, anytime, there seems to be a movement against them, there's this, all the tactics come out that these scammers use, and they try to really, hijack movements. And It's really interesting. I just think that anytime you bring up anything like ethics in journalism or better moderation policies, anything like that, and you might get attacked. If you do, that could be evidence of an enclosure scam happening. So be aware of that. So let me start off by just kind of explaining what an enclosure scam is. So basically what happens is in the gaming industry, these companies that make these games, sometimes they spend a lot of money on the games, right? And so, they want to maximize their return from the game for their next game because their next game is going to cost a lot. And the more money that they can, expend at the game, the better the game could be. That matters when the competition is out there also spending a ton of money, right? So sometimes developers get this bad idea of how they can make a little extra money, and it's called false advertising. And so basically, how this works is they're going to tell you, typically it could be classic or it could be hardcore. Hardcore typically means player versus player in a MMORPG. I mean, typically, right? Classic, could mean like it was in the old days when the game was more popular, right? Um, so sometimes developers get the idea to kind of say that their product is more classic or more hardcore or long lasting legacy, but then it seems like in a lot of these games these days, it turns out to be a 12-month cycle that kind of funnels people into the old subscription servers where there's still people playing, and they're wondering how do we get players back to the game, right? So false advertising can work, but it leads to critics, and developers know this; they're aware of it, and so when it comes to critics, they don't want the word getting out about their false advertising. So what do they have to do? They have to control the narrative, right? And there's a lot of ways that they can do this. But this is where the enclosure begins. And I'm just going to use these fence panels to kind of represent our enclosure here so that we can kind of get a visual idea of how this works. One, a little bit. And this one will go over here, like that. Do it. Okay, so that's our enclosure. And so what we're talking about here is the developers controlling the narrative. So these critics are trying to get out there. They're trying to say, hey, don't play this because it's not as advertised, right? And the developers are engaged in this battle trying to stop them. And so how this works is, in order to control the narrative, they need to control the game community. So you can think of the game community as one of these fence sides, right? And the game community is really easy to control for the administrator, because he has the banhammer or she has the banhammer in their hand, and they can totally control the game community just by making up an an arbitrary rule like too negative. If you're being too negative, well, that could be a problem, right? So, it's really easy for them to control the game community with like a rule like too negative, and then, they basically just have impunity at that point. Um, they also might have a few people in the game community that are, enabling them to abuse people, to silence them. Um, uh, people who are there just in case the moderators aren't on, who are going to attack critics, or people who are asking for, ethics in, journalism, let's say, or better moderation in this case. Um, it's just very easy for them to control the game community. Another one of these fence sides could be the external communities. Let's say, so basically discords, external discords like other games in the similar genre, or other servers of the same game, that are private servers maybe, and subreddits, anything remotely related, um, and so on and so forth. External communities. So there's a couple ways developers can control these, and that's either by getting, planting your own person as the moderator there, and then implanting this negativity rule, and then they have the impunity again to silence all critics. I say that because all criticism is technically negative feedback. It's technically negative, inherently negative. So all criticism is inherently negative, and if you're being too critical, then you're being too negative, and you could be banned. Sometimes without warning, right? Impunity means they can do whatever they want, right? Sometimes in external communities, you can complain, but in the case of Reddit and subreddits, I've never had any luck. Even to this date, it just seems like I get completely ignored when I'm just trying to show people that sometimes these people are bad actors. Bad actor meaning, working for the developers to cancel criticism any way possible. If they don't control these external communities by having the moderator role, then things get bad, and it could be, it's they try to make friends with the mod. They try to be really active, 100,000 posts in the community, uh, so that they have sway with moderators. Um, in some cases, or these are just examples of tactics that it seems like people have used in the past that I've noticed in these types of enclosure scams. Um, they'll harass moderators basically, uh, in order to get them to ban their critics. Um, they'll defame the person who is one of their critics to the moderators, and it gets pretty weird. So they really are just trying to control the moderator, spamming the report button, maybe even botting report buttons, really just harassing moderators to take action. And a lot of times they will, because they have impunity. There's no accountability unless they're holding themselves accountable. And this is just kind of a trend in the internet, right? It's all software on people's servers. So at the end of the day, at the end of the tunnel, for every piece of software, there's one owner that can do whatever they want. Nothing anybody can do about it. At least, that's my understanding. So. And here we get to the part where Gamergate links to enclosure scams, potential linkage here, because journalists are another kind of public forum. So if developers can control those, or even create their own institutions for this journalism, I just I really feel like this question about ethics in journalism came up at a time when, at least, or it just really seemed to me like all of the journalists and all the gamer eggs and everything all just was run by these same businesses that were selling the games, right? And the reviews were so positive. If you've ever seen box art for like uh, you know, buying Super Nintendo games, or there's always these, glowing reviews on the boxes. And I've seen, just really just shillery, right? Shilling, basically. Um, so I've never really trusted any, I've never really subscribed to anything like that. But I can see how all of a sudden, there would be a lot of toxicity, a lot of people calling people racist, and people, doing that kind of stuff, and things getting out of hands for moderators so that they'll take action against, critics, really, or people that are talking about this ethics in journalism, right? They might try to, if I was one of these developers and all I really cared about was making a ton of money, and I really didn't want to change my ways and, have this ethics in journalism, I didn't even really want to talk to what I might do is I might throw a bunch of money at it, and get people to go and posts about how the movement is really about something else that it's not about, or something, right? Hijacking the movement, changing the message. uh you know I would almost wonder personally, and I'm a very skeptical person, but I just wonder how much of what happened with Gamergate, it turned into kind of a feminism thing. Uh, and in that, when it really kind of started out as ethics and journalism, maybe developers just didn't want to do the ethics thing. So they, sponsored this narrative change about what the movement was about to, feminism in gaming, or, female leads and stuff like that. And I totally get that. That's cool. Um, but that's something that they could deliver on, and it looks like they have been, right? Like every game, every movie, it seems like a lot of the times there's female leads these days, which again is great. um I'm just saying, like, it just seems like maybe that's what happened or something. The tactics that these people use in these enclosures are really awful. And so once they really have the whole thing closed in, uh the critics are closed in now. They can't get the word out about the false advertising at all. The game can continue to bring people in, and there's nothing that people who are aware of this can even really do, right? Um, they definitely just can't get the word out. If they try to, they'll get banned. Accounts banned. Um, and it gets pretty dark when critics are totally enclosed, and false advertising is allowed to proliferate. Things get pretty dark. And I'm going to use an example today, um, that's been fresh on my mind. But one thing I want to say, you might notice that I added this picture of this fox, and this little background picture in the back there. That's the new profile picture for How to FF6, and in the background, this is the banner image. And I just want to explain what these are. I'm going to keep these on the desktop here while I do these videos. But so these are both AI generated. And what the meaning is here is, it kind of reminds me of Robin Hood, this fox, right? He's going around, Robin Hood's going around, and, he's tired of the people being abused. He's tired of them being overtaxed. And, he's willing to do whatever it takes to just put an end to this, right? And protect these people, and make sure that there's fairness, right? And I wanted to put that on here just to remind myself of who I am, because as I go up against these enclosure scams, there's a lot of defamation. I've mentioned in my previous videos some of the defamation tactics that these people use. uh Alex Central videos that I've linked in the past, he also had the same problem, because it's the same tactics, right? Whoever speaks out about better moderation, or ethics in journalism, really just gets turned into they're bad. Alex Central bad, right? And so, um, you know, picture there will kind of remind me of that. And the background, these are both AI generated. So the prompt for the background was like, the hand of God comes down from heaven to crush corruption or something like that. So this is what it came up with. So I thought that was pretty cool. It kind of looks like an enclosure, like some kind of dome that's just being, burst open. I thought that was pretty cool. Okay, so the example that I'm going to use to explain how dark it gets when the false advertising gets to work unimpeded is Ultima Online. So I'm just going to explain something about it really quickly. I've explained this in a previous video, but I'll do it again. Originally, there was just the map, and there wasn't this Feluca word yet. There was just a map, and then players could attack other players so long as you're outside of town. But then players complained about that, and after a few years, they decided to split the map into two. One of them was called Feluca, and the other one is called Trammel. Okay, and in Trammel, you're not allowed to, you can't, it's impossible to attack other players. So, and it's just a duplicate of the original map. So now, and you can also travel from one map to the other map just by dropping a stone into the ground, and they drop off every monster that you kill. These stones are everywhere. I think they took them out of the game eventually, but the idea was that you could just go into easy mode at any time, right? And so this game also has non-instance housing, which means that all over this map, there's players can just go and put up a house, right? And so when they duplicated the map, they doubled the amount of housing space because they didn't duplicate the houses into each side. They just let you place a house on the other side if you wanted to. So it really just, and there, at the time there was like 16 or 20 servers or something like that. I can't remember how many they have on Ultima Online. But they basically doubled the map on every server. And so the game population, which was already declining due to EverQuest coming out, was just split up that much more. And it really disenfranchised the players that had already subscribed for a few years, that already subscribed to this one version of the game where you could attack the other players here. And we had our own code of conduct that, on a lot of servers, they had their own code of conduct so that we could have duels, right? 1v1, one player goes up against another player in a duel, right? And, the code that I'm talking about, this code of conduct that we had as players was just like, if you attack those players while they're fighting, everyone that's watching is going to attack you. And we did that, and it was pretty awesome. So it was pretty cool. So, a lot of us felt like it really wasn't necessary to do this, but it was also, a violation of the set of rules that the game initially subscribed to, which was this Feluca rule set where you could attack anybody anytime except for in town. Really, the guards would come and kill you. So, so that's the basics of how that works. There's Trammel and there's Feluca, and that's what they mean. Trammel means basically you can't be attacked or attack other players here, and Feluca, you can do that. So, as far as Ultima Online goes, it came out before the DMC Act, which means that custom content is non-criminalized for Ultima Online. So you can kind of emulate the game. It seems like you can emulate the game, and it's legitimate, more so than other games at least. And so, with Ultima Online, a lot of people do this, and they make their own servers, right? And this one server is called UO Outlands, and this is how they advertise. It just says UO Outlands is free to play. Outlands is hosted professionally, and the rule set you'll see at the bottom here is Feluca. This is on their about page. If you go to uooutlands.com/about, this is what you'll see. So remember this: it's free to play, it's hosted professionally, and it's the Feluca rule set, right? So that's how the shard is advertised. I think in my last video I mentioned but they really have a lot of professional. All their advertisements look professional, and so they really imply that there's this level of professionalism here. But here they are, just basically spelling it out for you. They say it themselves. Outlands is hosted professionally. Okay. So in my last video I showed this conversation, but I'm just gonna bring it up again just because it's fresh. And I also found a behind closed doors conversation related to this that I wanted to share. So basically, what's happening in this situation is um, a player has been jailed by the shard administrator, which is this Owen fellow here, and we find out from this conversation that's in their public Discord that I screenshotted here that the player was casting the invisible spell on uh, another player's pet, which was fighting a monster, and so the monster attacked um, the person instead of their pet, and the person died multiple times. Okay, so in the Felucca rule set, remember, you're allowed to attack other players. You're allowed to cast the invisibility spell on their pet, or them, or a monster, or anything. You know, everything, all of that is allowed. None of that violates any rules. The only kind of rule that you could possibly be violating if you're doing something like that is some kind of arbitrary negativity rule that, allows the administrator to just do whatever they want. They have total impunity at this point. Any of their critics, anyone who criticizes anything that they do, could be banned for being overly negative, because it's maybe the administrator sees it as overly negative to criticize them, right? And criticism is negative feedback. So technically, there's, that's also true, I guess. But when the rule set is, think about it like this: players have to follow the rules, administrators and game developers have to follow the rule set. It's a set of rules that they advertise the game will be. And so if you're there and you're subscribing or you're donating, you're funding that now. And that your expectation will then be that this rule set will be provided, right? And it won't be just changed on a whim. At least it should say that the rule set is Felucca, but it's subject to change or anything like that. But still, and if they change it, they can't just keep advertising it as Felucca. But that screenshot I took, I just took it the other day. So it's funny when we're looking back at this conversation from 2021 that Owen is jailing a player for basically playing Felucca gameplay. That the set of rules determines the gameplay, right? If a player is, killing a monster for gold and then waiting for it to respawn so he can kill it again for more gold, and a more skilled player comes along and they want that spot, they can, harass that person by casting spells on them, right? And saying, you are crying if they're complaining too much about it. You're allowed to talk a little smack in Felucca rule set, because it's just a way there's no rules against it for one thing, but it's also a way to, distract the person who you're combating, right? So it's a tactic that's been used forever, and there's really no rules against it. So let's take a look at this. Basically, at the start, it starts with this "Are you kidding?" person. It's just a player there, apparently. They are enabling this Owen to kind of abuse this person in an unprofessional way, in my opinion. It seems like "Are you kidding?" is enabling him. He's showing a part of the screenshot from this conversation. This is a screenshot from inside the game. There's a journal in the game that this is from the conversation with Owen, the server administrator, the owner of the shard, and this player who was casting invis on another player's pet, and the other player complained to the game administrator 3 times apparently. And this guy's enabling. He's calling him a disrespectful piece of shit here. And then, and so basically this conversation is between Jack, who is friends with this Trolliosis from the screenshot, the guy in the game who was casting invisible. His friend is Jack, and he's saying, but from nothing to permanent, this is a permanent, he's been permanently banned now with no warning. Doesn't even seem like he's violated a rule. He's a great guildmate, Jack is saying, who would give you the shirt off his back. And then we've got this Gabby Ghouls person who, if you've watched my previous videos, you'll see that I've said that it seems like she's going around harassing moderators. I wanted to show you this. This is just an extra screenshot that I found. It's from a video, an Alex Central video. I'm gonna link that in the description. But she's basically in the screenshot. She's talking to the WoW hardcore or classic hardcore moderators in their Discord channel and saying, if you aren't going to ban this Alex guy, she was trying to say he's racist, trying to get him banned. He's a critic of their product or something, right? Do me the favor and ban me. But don't just kick, ban, so that it deletes all my posts. This is somebody who, when I started making these videos, seemed to be deleting, 3,000 posts from one channel in the time that it took me to make the videos. She says, I'm not trying to get doxxed, so mods can avoid drama, right? She's saying that she just wants to have all her posts deleted so that she doesn't get doxxed, right? But, based on everything I know about her, I'm not sure that's what's going on there. All right. So she is there enabling Owen as well. And there's also Expo, another administrator, he's just saying you're cherry picking to this Jack guy for asking why it's permanent with no warning. And, he didn't seem to violate any rules. What's the violation? What specifically, right? And they won't tell him. Owen says, it's too bad he just doesn't give a fuck about respecting a single word. He's swearing here. Remember, it does say Outlands is hosted professionally, right? So we expect this professionalism. Otherwise, it's kind of false advertising, isn't it? Seems like it might be, right? Then Jack is saying fell-based shard, right, to this Gabby person. Basically just meaning Feluca, saying there's no rule violation. It's how we play here. It's a skill-based economy. That's how you can think about it. The most skilled player gets the best loot. That's how it is. Because you can attack other players. So this Jack person is saying, show me in the rules where it's invisible. Casting invisible is against the rule. And then Owen, I guess, said, sorry, but this isn't about casting invis. And this Jack person says that's what got him jailed. He was invising tank pet, so the pet was tanking the monster damage. Damage from the monster. And then Owen just kind of doesn't want to acknowledge the fact that the rule set that he's supposed to be abiding, that he must abide, really, in order to not be false advertising, right? Says, anyways, this display is gross, and I've run out of sympathy to adjust the ban. I was considering reducing it as our private conversation was very civil, but this is stupid. He's kind of saying maybe it's not civilized to be asking for specifically what rule was violated and standing up for his friend. Basically begging this Owen guy to let him play with his friend. Now, Owen is continuing on to say he was griefing a new player. Griefing is another subjective term. It's just, you could say that by casting invis on the player's pet, maybe 3 times or something like that, I guess is what happened. That's griefing because he doesn't need to be doing that. He's not getting gold. He's not out playing the game as, to get gold, to, improve his wealth. And when the rule set is Feluca, you have to expect that not everyone's going to be doing that. Some people are coming for the player versus player combat, and that's what they want to do, right? You can also see it as that he's trying to teach that new player kind of show him the ropes. This is how it works, right? You could do this to other players too, right? If they're, in your way and you want that spawn, you want to kill those monsters and they're in the way, then this is how you could do that. So that's one way of seeing it. He's not just outright killing this player either, which is, something to consider, right? And so, anyways, Owen continues to say he was griefing a new player, training a skill. And after the third res kill and page, meaning that the player complained 3 times, I intervened by sending him to jail. Okay, so he just broke the rule set, right? The disrespect I was met with was the straw that broke the camel's back after years of being a non-contributor. And in my previous video, I mentioned how this looks really bad. So just pay attention to that. Okay. Then this Jack person is replying, and he's saying, it was civilized, and when I asked for clarification, you went silent. He's trying to get the specific rule that's been broken here. And then Owen just says, that's only this incident anyways, after literal years of this shit. And when I see this, I always have to say, like, if there's no warning after years, that's kind of on you, because you're supposed to be the person who's, explaining your position, and having this debate about whether or not it's legal or not, or what. He's totally avoided doing that, which could be why he doesn't really maybe seem to understand what the rule set is, because he's not really talking to people before he takes this action, and then from there it's he's just stonewalling basically. He's not giving them an answer for why the rules, um, uh, what rule was violated. It seems like he's just avoiding that, right? Um, so then, the Jack person says for invis, and then Owen says, "I'm not sure where I said permanent ban, especially given the private conversation I was having with Jack." So it seems like he really is just trying to pull him back into this private conversation. And he's also kind of bullying by saying it's not a permanent ban when, it's only technically a temporary ban if you say that you're going to lift it after a certain amount of time. Because there is no real temporary ban setting. It's just a permanent ban. There's also timeouts or kicks. So, anyways, I wanted to show you that really quickly, because I actually found in the same, this is all from their public Discord, that's all from their general channel. And this is how dark it gets when, this is why I would say, this is what people are doing with the false advertising, right? Seemed like he was saying, after years of being a non-contributor, right? What does he mean by that? Is he mean like they just aren't, they're not entertaining players? They're not contributing, by making events for players or by role playing. What does it mean, non-contributor, right? And so now let's just take a look at this. This is the actual conversation, it seems, that was going on between the player who was casting Invisible and got jailed and then permanently banned, and Owen, the administrator. And this is, it looks like this is actually the journal log of the administrator, because it says system message. There are 1 unhandled help request currently, right, on the Outlands server. So this is, I think Owen posted this, but I can't remember. It might still be in there. It probably still is. The last time I checked, all these were just a couple of days ago. This is a couple of days ago when I got these screenshots. They're at the same, if you look at the timestamps on the other video there, 2021, it looks like September 15th, around noonish. These screenshots were posted. And it looks like from the log, it's an administrator's journal. So the only difference in between what was happening in the public Discord channel and what's happening in private here seems to be that Owen clarifies what contributor means. But let's just go through this. Trolliosis says, "You are crying, And it looks like, I think at this point, he was actually talking to the person who he invisible. I can't say that for sure. But then system message, they have been revealed. I think that's Owen standing there, revealing his character who was invisible to the player up until this moment. And he says hi. And the Trolliosis guy says, "Dude, stop. Really? Tram much?" He's talking about Trammel because he's saying, this is a Feluca rule set, right? He's immediately calling him out that this is how we play this game. What are you doing, right? And So he's saying, so I killed some people. Who cares? The player died when he casted invisible on the pet. Um, the player might have been able to get away, but they were pretty new. So usually that's just a kind of polite way to say, get out of here, basically, right? But sometimes it can lead to death, right? Especially with a new player. So, but new players on this server have their own island where I don't even think this is possible. Unless this was happening there, I don't really know that. If it is happening there, this is something that Owen could have coded out. But still, the whole existence of that island in the first place on this server, still, it goes against the rule set as well. It's a different rule set. So parts of the map are a different rule set. And that's not really advertised properly on their homepage, their about page. So Trolleosis says, come on, I haven't even played in weeks, he says. He's saying fell-based or tram. What is it? What rule set? I haven't even played in weeks. And then bam, I'm in jail for casting invis. It doesn't seem right. WTF. Say something. And then Owen, who says, Outlands is hosted professionally, right? I'll say something if you shut up for a second. He's basically telling him to shut up. And then, this person gets offended and he says, well, hurry, TF up, man. This is BS, right? And then Owen says, you know what? You contribute nothing to this shard, nor the community. Okay? So, what are we talking about here? How can you contribute to the shard, and how can you contribute to the community, and how are those things different, right? Well, if, like I said, if you're contributing to the community, you're like hosting events to entertain people. You could be in the Discord, maybe even tackling some critics of the game. You could be fanboying or fangirling, whatever you want to call it. For the shard, in the community, right? So you're doing things for the community. It could be role playing, right? You're adding to the community by being a role player and bringing some richness and some extra depth to the world, right? Or you can contribute to the shard, which I believe says on the I believe it says on their website that they accept donations of Prevalia, they accept donations of money and they give you these Prevalia coins. Let's just take a look here. This is from their wiki. It says, free to play Outlands. At the bottom, it says donate to support the shard further and receive Prevalia coins. So one way you can contribute to the shard is to donate for these Prevalia coins, right? And other than that, I'm not really sure what else you can do, what else it could mean to contribute to the shard as opposed to the community, other than just simply donating money to the shard, right? So I'm not sure exactly what that means, but it kind of seems like, he's just kind of taking this person behind closed doors. And now he's telling them that, the real problem here is that you just aren't really the straw that's breaking the camel's back here, that you haven't contributed to the shard or the community, right? Okay, I have given you countless opportunities, it says, to play within the rules of the game. What rule did I break? You constantly create a negative atmosphere. So there it is, right? So just negativity, basically, right? He didn't say, hey, how are you doing, new player? Can I give you some gold? Can I help you with anything? He instead wanted to kill some monsters, and he was just playing the game. It seems like he was just playing the game as you're allowed to, right? As per the rule set. So he's saying what rule's broken. Owen's not telling him, except for this negativity thing. Owen also brings up the fact that you will not do anything. There's in the rules it says you will not do anything that interferes with the ability of other Outlands players to enjoy playing the game in accordance with its rules, right? And that's his griefing rule, right? It's about griefing. So he's saying that you're griefing basically if somebody is just trying to play the game in accordance with its rules and you're interfering with that, right? But that's what Owen's doing, it seems like, because he's not saying which rule is broken other than this negativity, which seemed to stem from this criticism of Owen putting him in jail, right? So once Owen put him in jail, maybe that's the negativity, or maybe creating a negative atmosphere by not contributing to the shard or the community. It's ridiculous. It really is bad. This is really one of the worst things. It might. I think it is the worst thing I've ever seen because this is player who just casted invisible on this. He's just playing the game and he got taken in behind closed doors, and he's told that he's not contributing enough to the shard or the community. Like, he's already been playing at this point. It's 2021, so I think the game's already been running for 3 years since launch, somewhere in there. So he's been playing for 3 years. Who knows how much stuff who knows how much stuff that he's gained in the game from the time that he's invested into the game. Um, all of his items are basically being held over his head by a bully. All of his characters and all the time he spent building the characters and all the grinding towards these long grinding systems that they have in this Outlands game. This person could have put 16 hours a day in for the last 3 years. And now he's just being accused of constantly creating a negative atmosphere. And that's that. Like, it looks like he also may have accused this Trolliosis of excessive verbal harassment. The guy's saying, like, what? He's saying, telling one dumb guy that he put the B in Dumby. That seems really mild to me. Like, if it was a pepper, I'd spit it out. Because it's really mild. Like, and then Owen's just basically saying, I hope you find a shard you enjoy. Take care, you're banned, right? Like, I guess he said the guy put the B in Dumby because he brought up my mom or something, right? And who knows? This guy could be like, he could be a senior citizen, right? Who knows? But and I'm just saying it's possible that he put 3 years into the game already, right? His friends in there begging Owen to just let him play, right? Like, and I've seen this before. I wonder if that dips into the realm of extortion because, he's inviting him to play on this rule set. It says again, free to play. You don't have to contribute to the shard in terms of donations, right? So I don't know what else it could mean, but it seems like it means that. I can't say for sure. Outlands is hosted professionally. I'm not sure how that's professionally. Professionals don't stonewall. They don't just stonewall people, tell them that they don't contribute enough to the shard or to the community. And the rule set here is Feluca, right? So I'm just not, but I've seen this before, and this is an old screenshot. This is from a guild was playing this game. They were called the Money Guild. These are screenshots from that era of things Owen said. He said, I am tired of arbitrary rules and trying to enforce them. And I just want to point out how ironic it is for a shard admin who made the rules to be saying that they're arbitrary, and then he's tired of enforcing arbitrary rules, like, right? But he's just basically spelling it out. The rules are arbitrary, and I don't know. I don't understand. And you may have noticed a few fixes where I think were trying to stop some of the tactics that this guild was using to crush basically the competition and everybody else. And he's saying that easily said if you have 40 blues, so 40 players working alone, not on comms, so they're kind of new to the game maybe, and they're up against 10 players who are veteran players who are not having a hard time killing these blue players because they've all turned red, which means they've at least each killed 5 blue players. Right? Blue just means innocent, hasn't killed anybody. Red means he's killed at least 5 people in a certain time frame, 48 hours, or it takes 48 hours for one of those counts to go away. But anyways, whose sole purpose is to ruin the experience for everyone else. Right? He's just saying you're not competing to win, for any other reason but to ruin everyone else's experience. But really, what's happening is that these guys are winning. And it's ruining everyone else's experience. That's not necessarily that's what they're trying to do, though. But the more this guy interferes with what they're winning, and they're not breaking any rules, the more pain it seems like they're putting down on these people. And that's kind of what happens. Like, if there's false advertising and people are being disenfranchised who, were false advertised to or supported something that then gets changed, they get angry and sometimes they'll just take it out on your new players, right? But I don't really think that's what's happening at this time because that they were actually competing in some of their player versus player systems for points towards like a prestige or something it's called. It's a player versus player thing, so it only makes sense. Like it does, it's very subjective for him to say it's just purely to ruin their experience. It's just not how they play. I know those people. Owen says you literally ruin the gameplay experience for nearly 40 players every time you do what you do. So, no, it isn't a terrible way to explain it. I tried to be diplomatic, but your guild leader wasn't willing to do his part. So, we will take matters into our own hands. So, this is again Owen going around bullying guild masters now behind closed doors, which kind of seems like, you know, I recently got kicked out of a guild because of criticizing this guy. I know he's got some friends in there or some ties to it, but even if he didn't, like, uh, I had a guildmate that was telling me he came to the channel and was like, you know, he needed screenshots of conversations and stuff, anything to put him at ease that there wasn't a whole guild mutiny or something going on because somebody felt like when Owen banned them, apparently that they had already donated, and so they went to their bank and contested those donations after they got banned by this guy with his arbitrary rules and trying to enforce them, right? And I guess he went to the guild and was threatening the guild master about kicking him out of the guild or something, right? So that's what that looks like was happening with Money Guild. And my friend who mentioned that from the Rat Guild, that was what happened in the Rat Guild, also did say specifically that they were under threat of being money gilded. And those screenshots I just showed you were from this money guild, the one where he's saying he's tired of arbitrary rules and trying to enforce them. It's a little ridiculous, but I just wanted to say one thing. I also had another guildmate from the Rat Guild. He mentioned that this Trolliosis person who casted invisible on that person's pet. I guess what happened is that they never actually. I guess Owen removed the ban at some point. The person came back, and I'm not sure if this is the exact timeline for how that worked out, but I would just say, like, if you've got a server administrator who is bullying someone like that behind closed doors, it seemed like maybe even it was dipping into the realm of extortion by saying he didn't pay enough money for this free game. Maybe that's what he was trying to say there. I can't see what else it means, but I could be wrong. It could mean something else. But anyways, if somebody's being abused like that, uh, by a server administrator who says they're going to be professional, but then they're anything but. Uh, they might feel like it's a scam, right? And they might go out and try to hurt that game, right? They might see a person like my buddy from the Rat Guild is a really outgoing guy. He really is a very talented player. Always has lots of gold. Sets up events for people in the community, right? So he's doing that. He's contributing to the community, right? And people who are contributing to the community, if you feel like the game is a scam and you want to go and protect people now, you know, uh, there's only so much that you can do as a player, depending on how much you know about the game, right? Like you might go out and loot somebody's house, right? This is what happened to my rat buddy. He said that Trolliosis looted his house. And he was like, I don't care about what happened with Owen. That guy looted my house. And I just have to wonder, like, did it happen before or after? Because maybe, take it as a compliment, maybe. The guy's, if he's obviously trying to kill this server now because he feels like it's a scam, and you're somebody who's showing people a good time here, and that really helps people spend 3 years there when there's somebody being entertaining in the community and it's great. But then 3 years down the road, right, the server administrator is just taking you to jail, telling you you don't contribute enough to the free game, and that's the last straw on the camel's back, the straw that broke the camel's back, right? Um, like I can kind of understand both sides. I understand why he would want to, hurt somebody who's contributing to the community if he's trying to kill this community already, because it's hurting players, right? It's hurting players in a bad way because, maybe he couldn't play with his friend, right? His friend from so long, right? When I got kicked out of my guild, I got kicked out of a guild with friends of mine that have been playing for, 14 years, not Outlands, but the game in general. We've played different servers of this game together for years, right? And so, and I understand personally, it doesn't really bother me because I know this Owen has ties to this guild, right? But at the same point in time, you know, uh, I would feel for other players who that might happen to. How does that hurt them? When Owen bans them, uh, like he banned a buddy of mine named Cups at one point. He banned Cups. Cups is probably asking for it. Who knows though? I really think that, I wouldn't say that about Cups just because, um, you know, it's really that chicken and egg situation. Which came first? Cups trolling or Cups getting banned for trolling and being trolled by mods banning him for no reason sometimes to pay him back for whatever. If that's how it is, I don't really know. And I don't really care because professionalism matters, right? Rules for bans matter. It affects people's lives if they get banned for no reason and there's no warning. And, when administrators say it's been going on for years and they still haven't given a warning, it's like take some personal responsibility. That's the role of the leader, You have to do that, right? To lead by example and take personal responsibility. I hope to see that end, but it's just very interesting, learning about Gamergate and realizing, when they're talking about ethics in journalism, and just piecing that journalism was like an extra fence panel for me to think about it that way, and um, just to because it's a public forum, it's supposed to be our space to criticize, and so if it's glowing reviews, right? We're all gonna think, hey, that's actually a great game because it came from an honest gamer that's writing it or something, right? Um, when these guys are in closing, they're also they're also trying to control the subreddit. Uh, it's been a long time that people have been accusing the current mod team of Ultima Online subreddit um, of basically removing any criticism, any negative feedback, which is criticism and it's negative, solely on the basis of being negative feedback, right? Things were being removed, right? So if they're removing just any negative feedback solely because it's negative feedback about this Owen and Outlands, right? It almost looks like they're protecting what's been going on there, this false advertising, right? And so it really makes me wonder, it really just makes me wonder. And I'm just trying to show you guys the facts. These are things that were all in public forums. If I'm making any statements about this stuff, it's my opinion, right? It's just based on these facts, and I don't see how anyone can really see it any other way, and that's something to consider, right? I think that's all the screenshots that I have for you on this. I'm going to be I'm going to be researching Gamergate and looking at the tactics that were used. And basically, what I'm trying to compile is a list of tactics that these scammers use to control narratives and to enclose on public boards where they have no right to, or free games with Felucca rule sets or classic rule sets or hardcore rule sets or message boards, that are unofficial. They have no right to be planting moderators there. And it seems like that's what's been going on, even in the Ultima Online community, because they were going to even try to cancel unofficial. It looked like they were even going to try to cancel unofficial content there. And if you watch my other videos, you'll see how that looks. But anyways, thanks for watching. Stay tuned. I'm going to be putting together a 60-second video about what is an enclosure scam for the channel. And so stay tuned for that. All right, thanks very much.